Welcome to Public Power Underground, Northwest Public Power's premier weekly infotainment program that covers Northwest Public Power and public power adjacent news. Our series began as an awkward forced fun time for the Power Department 49 weeks ago when we altered our work arrangements at the start of an ongoing pandemic. It has evolved into a forum to chat with public power professionals about niche topics that are entertaining to an extremely small group of electric utility enthusiasts. And if you're listening to this, that means you. On today's show, we'll get an update on Northwest power markets on Arin Reports, get a guest interview by EWEB's Matt Schroettnig of Downen, who compares Representative Simpson's proposal to Guns N' Roses' Use Your Illusion double album, talk to PNGC's Greg Mendonca about their perspective on the Northwest Power Pool's Resource Adequacy program, and cover a few other public power and public power adjacent news topics. I'm your host, the voice of the underground, Brian Fawcett. Today, we welcome a special guest co-host, the publisher of Wire to Wire, PPC's Karen Heim. Hello, Karen. Welcome back.
Hello, Brian. Thank you. I started at Public Power Underground and just like upping my game, co-host, put it on the CV.
You're kind of replacing Arin today, and let's just say it. She set a low bar. I'm only saying that because she promised me some Tesla supercharger miles, and so I needed to get a shot in, and I hope she listens to this.
Well, she better listen to it.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to be here.
We are glad to have you.
Thank you.
Our other co-star of Public Power Underground, the coding wizard of R and Python, our resident Genesis apprentice, a Reddit user, Banjalele virtuoso, trained linguist, apparently I'm not a linguist, a dark age of Camelot mending healer, and current power analyst, Ian, the neural network Bledsoe. Thanks for being here, Ian.
Thanks, Brian, and thanks for that amazing intro. But small correction, I am a mending pacification healer.
Okay, we will get that in the next script, along with another nickname. Your bio is gold, by the way, providing material for this. Lastly, the artistic director of Public Power Underground and manager of the Power Department, Paul Dockery.
Great to be back. Bo was a little disappointed, I think, in my artistic directorship of his, video. But I will say I sent him NBA Desktop, which is the inspiration for the aesthetic of this. Don't hold us to that high of a standard. That is awesome. They are professionals. We're amateurs, but we try.
All right.
Have you been watching NBA Desktop, Brian? Have you watched any NBA Desktop yet, Brian?
Like I said, I listen to most of the podcasts, so no, I have not. I've been too busy doing other work stuff.
That's probably better.
That's a good answer.
It's allowed, I guess.
I'll probably get some NBA Desktop in next week. So Arin is on vacation this week, and I was going to keep taking shots at her, but now I feel bad. So Ian's going to have to try to replace Arin in our first segment, covering power market indicators in the Northwest. So without Arin, we have Arin Reports. Ian, what do you have?
Thank you very much, Brian. This is Arin Reports without Arin, where we try and get up to speed on Northwest market indicators for February 25th, 2021. I'm Ian Bledsoe, and I've got your market update for the week. April through September flows at the Dalles are expected to be at 99% of normal, unchanged from last week. Outflow at the Dalles peaked over the past week at 290 kCFS on February 19th at 1800 hours. Midday elevation at Grand Coulee ended the day on February 24th at 1276, up a foot since last reported last week, as outflows dropped from a peak of 194 kCFS on February 18th at 1800 hours to peak outflow of 139 kCFS on February 24th at 0800 hours. Checking on snow in the region using Answergy's aggregation of basin data, the snow water equivalent for BC Hydro Generation Basin is at 121% of normal. For Mid-C, 115%, and aggregating all snow in the Columbia River Basin that'll flow through Bonneville Dam, they estimate there's 109% of normal snow blanket. Spot market power in the Northwest for delivery February 25th is at 1975, with gas at 268 per MMBTU, translating to a spark spread of $1 and a heat rate of 7,200. In term markets, balance a month for Mid-C has fallen to $22.75 per megawatt hour, a $31 per megawatt hour drop since last week. Mid-Sea Power for Q3 2021 is at 57.71 with Sumas gas at 282, translating to a heat rate of 20,460. Spending 2 beats at Bonneville's balancing authority this week. Peak load last week was at 8,500 on February 24th at 7:40 a.m. During load's peak, hydrogen was at 11,480 megawatts, wind gen at 560 megawatts, conventional units at 7026, and nuclear was at 1160. And so year 2020 closed the November, December, January period in a strong La Nina territory, a negative 1.2 oceanic Nino index. The SST consolidated Nino forecast indicates that we're likely to remain in La Nina through spring 2021. This week in NOAA climate forecast, the 6 to 10 day outlook has temp in the region with a 40% chance of being below normal, while precip looks to be in the normal range. Some likelihood of below average temperature in the region stays in their outlook through the 90-day report. We'll check back in on bond issuances when Arin returns. So that's all we got the update. Back to you.
Well done, Ian. I think that was a really good read through. I'm really proud of you.
Good job.
I think Arin will be proud of you too.
Yep, we just might have to speed that up 1 1/4 in post to match the speed a little bit.
So last week we had Mike Griswold on to talk about what to expect this week in term markets, and it seems like he predicted correctly that the balance of month prices would crash this week and come back to normal. So that was great. It was great insight and turned out to be true. To stay here for just a little bit longer. I'm really hopeful about the snow. It seems like we've got good snow blankets. We're probably to the point where no matter what happens in the next couple weeks, we're going to end up at least in a decent hydro year.
Next up is our weekly walkthrough Northwest Public Power and Public Power adjacent news in a segment we like to call Public Power Desktop. Karen, you're up first.
All right. Representative Simpson's energy and salmon concept with the ambitious goal of ending the salmon wars is a topic of interest for public power customers in the Northwest and is likely to be a point of discussion for quite some time. EWEB's Matt Schroettnig has agreed to be Public Power Underground's special salmon war correspondent to interview celebrities from the region with their thoughts on the proposal. This week, Matt interviewed the Northwest Power and Conservation Council's vice chair and former fish and wildlife guru of the Public Power Council, Bo Downen.
Bo, welcome to Public Power Underground. Excited to have you. I'm apparently the special salmon war correspondent of the day, Matt Schroettnig. It's great to see you after so long. I'm just disappointed I'm not going to get to see the fancy socks. Kind of missed those from the PPC meeting. But it's a pleasure to see you. How you doing?
Man, it's great to see you. And thanks for the compliment on the socks. I'm still trying to rock a little something colorful, especially in these.
Fly in Montana?
Hey, occasionally. But it's a real treat to be on Public Power Underground. I hear this is the #1 podcast among public power aficionados in the country, really. So,
and the edgiest, from what I hear.
This is the edgiest and biggest appearance I've ever had. So, thank you for having me.
That may be true of me as well. And let's not dwell on that too long. You're a council member. First of all, that is awesome. Not just that, you're vice chair, both of which are a huge honor. I'm not ashamed to admit I'm more than a little bit jealous. So for the dozens of our listeners, could you please tell me how excited you are to work with Doug again?
Hey, being on the council has been a total kick, a great opportunity for me. And I've just really enjoyed the year and a half that I've been here. It, like you said, will be joined, or just was recently joined on the council by also a public power alumnus, Doug Grob, who was a board member at Flathead Electric for 20 years and really knows his way in and out of all these issues that the council works on. And so we're really lucky to have him, especially as by this spring, after our legislative session, I'll be rolling off the council, vice chair or otherwise. But it's been a real treat.
That is fantastic. And Doug, we'd like to welcome you as well. Look forward to having you on in the not too distant future. Now, Bo, I'd asked you to join me today, and thank you again for doing so. Hoping you'd help me digest some of the many components of Representative Simpson's proposal to end the salmon wars, as we mentioned earlier, a proposal that's likely to be a, if not the focus of discussion in the Northwest for the foreseeable future. In addition to a catchy title, I think it's safe to say the proposal is ambitious. Now, given your background and what I would characterize as an unparalleled comprehension of the lay of the land, what are you seeing on the easternmost part of the basin in regards to the proposal?
That's a great question, and you're exactly right. I think the word that everybody has used to describe this thing is ambitious. It's a great big. I think it was the governor of Idaho that called it a great big hairy goal, or some terminology, and so it's good to see that ambitious effort in the region. I think I would say this thing is really. The more I thought about it, the more I started oddly comparing it to the 1991 release of Guns N' Roses' Use Your Illusion, a double album. You can tell what generation I'm in by making that kind of a fundamental album in my music development. But it was a really highly anticipated album. I mean, people knew about it a year in advance, just like we knew about this proposal now for, gosh, about 2. I sat in on a briefing that was related to this proposal at least 18 months ago. So it's been really highly anticipated. It's been greatly discussed. There's been leaks throughout about what's really in this thing, just like the Use Your Illusion double album had a number of leaks early on before the whole album was released. And this thing is akin to the salmon effort a little bit in my mind, like that album, to stay with the Guns N' Roses reference, because it was a real turning point in the band, just like this could be a turning point from a kind of an aggressive, combative type of sound that GNR had in their previous 2 albums, to something that was maybe a little more inclusive, with not just the metal, but blues, rock, classical, punk, and kind of brought a bunch of different things together. And there was something for everybody in it. Just like in this proposal, I think Congressman Simpson has tried to put a little something for everybody in here, from power interests to ag, to the shippers, to a lot of the folks that are longtime environmental advocates, right down to any sort of industry that you can think of in the Northwest that's impacted by really the crux of this whole proposal, which is removal of the 4 lower Snake River dams. And so that's my best attempt at helping those of you who are rock and roll fans, specifically Axl and Slash, better comprehend what's really going on with this by saying this is one big messy double album with a lot in it that's some of it's gonna be really enjoyed by the critics, and some of it's gonna be really kind of seen as too much of a departure from the sound that we've gotten used to, and it could fall flat. But I think it's, the jury is out, though we have begun seeing some feedback across the region.
Yeah. I think it's safe to say that this is definitely the hottest take to date, and certainly a unique one. I love it. I got to ask though, 1 or 2, which was better?
The way I saw it was a double album that had to be listened to all together, but I'd take 2 for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
If pushed.
It did. It pushed. Knocking on Heaven's Door, easily the best cover. And we'll leave it there. I'm gonna have to process that one for a few minutes, Bo. I apologize.
Sorry for throwing you a curveball. I was looking for a unique take on this thing, because I'm sure that in the meetings that you've sat through now for a while, you've heard kind of the pretty much the basics of what's in this thing, and your audience probably has too. So I thought I'd throw an overhand curveball at them and see what they thought of that. But to answer your other question about it, on the east side over here, we are at the edge of the system, and so as this proposal is really known as the effort to end the salmon wars, and salmon is the real big issue here. We don't have any anadromous fish in Montana. We don't have any salmon coming up this far. We do have our own endangered species stocks or listed species, and a couple different, including bull trout and sturgeon up this way. But I think that does beg a question that will have to be considered by people up this far in the basin is the what's in it for me. Obviously, the 7 utilities in western Montana that buy power from Bonneville have a real vested interest in what goes on with this thing, as do a number of the grain growers that get their grain out to the coast by getting it to Lewiston, Clarkston, and then down the river on barges. But for the most part, we're not seeing the media in Montana that you're most likely seeing down out of Portland, Seattle, I-5 corridor. Yep. places where salmon are a lot closer to the hearts of a lot of the folks in that part of the region.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Just going back for a second, unique take was the goal. I think it's safe to say you accomplished your goal, sir. One of the questions I was hoping to ask you is $33.5 billion. A lot of people are kind of in awe at the amount, talking about how much money this is. And if I'm being honest, that was my initial reaction as well. And then I started going through the proposal a little bit and actually taking stock of the number of stakeholders and constituents and issues that that Representative Simpson and Lindsay Slater are attempting to address. And I don't know if it's enough. Now I don't think it's enough. I'm curious if you have any takes there. If you have an opinion, you'd be willing to share.
I think those are great questions, because I was with you. It looked like a staggering number at first, but then when picking through the proposal and seeing the earmarks for each individual thing, I started thinking, wow, that seems awfully low for even, say, the breaching section. That is associated within also power replacement, et cetera. And, $33.5 billion, even Congressman Simpson said that was the minimum. And so a big number for most folks around this country, but as to borrow from U.S. Senator Everett Dirksen from Illinois, a billion here, a billion there, and now we're talking real money. But I guess maybe if you get 33, that's real money. But you guys got a couple of guys in Seattle that could play poker on a Thursday night and lose that much, and they'd still have 100 billion or 150 billion in their pocket without much to worry about. So I guess it's all kind of relative, but you're right. It's a staggering number, and even as it is, I look at it and I'm not so sure that it can truly make all the interests whole that the proposal is set out to do.
Yeah. I think it's a fantastic problem to have, being able to lose 33 billion and not have to worry about it. But cannot say I'm there. So closing out here, obviously wanted to say thank you a few more times, which I will. But what are your priorities for 2021, and how can those of us in Oregon and Washington and way downriver be of assistance?
Well, I'd just say as a member of the council for at least the time being, I would ask that Public Power pay really close attention to not just the fish issues around this proposal, as well as the Columbia Basin Collaborative, and ensure that your voices get involved in both of those efforts, as I know they will, but also make sure that you're following the council's power plan, which will be coming out in draft in July is the anticipated date. And I know that too, you've all been following, but please make sure that you take a close look, because we're seeing some different things in this power plan than the council's seen before in previous power plans. And we want to make sure that the regional experts from Public Power are taking the time to weigh in.
Well said, my friend. Well said. So Bo, I think you probably know this, but just so everyone else is aware, you're really important You're a very important person in the region. You've got a great deal of influence. So in addition to offering an embarrassingly effusive amount of thanks for the opportunity to chat with you today and for you joining us here on Public Power Underground, I want to thank you for your engagement with, subscription to, and enthusiastic shilling on behalf of Public Power Underground going forward. And with that, I think we'll toss it back to Paul for sports.
Hey, thanks so much, Matt. Thanks, Paul, and thanks
sir.
to Public Power Underground. This, again, best program I've ever been on.
Last week's extreme and prolonged winter weather caused energy system disruptions across the Midwest and South Central states. The power disruptions are only one consequence of the catastrophe. Texas is a customer choice state where residential customers can select their electric service provider. The deregulation of the electric sector has allowed companies like Griddy to provide electric service to retail customers at wholesale energy prices in addition to fixed fees. In average times, it might provide some average savings, but the cold weather event was an outlier and resulted in skyrocketing retail bills for minuscule amounts of energy. In a well-timed piece, the Wall Street Journal published an analysis comparing the savings for customers served by traditional utilities rather than a retail power company since 2004. The journal's conclusion was that Texans' electric bills were $28 billion higher under deregulation. Note, the recent energy crisis was not in the data set they used for their analysis. The article notes that the Texas Coalition for Affordable Power produced similar findings in a study of the state's power markets. For more, check for the article in the Wall Street Journal and check out Griddy.
Griddy is wild.
I wanted to let you make that utterance of possible libel and or slander.
Okay, maybe I'll cut it out. Who is Griddy?
So one interesting thing about, talking about Griddy providing service at wholesale rates, the rate of like $9,000 per $9 per kilowatt hour or 9,000 per megawatt hour. That was actually not a market set rate. The Texas PUC set the market price to that.
Right. It's the price cap, and they pushed it to the price cap to try to motivate whatever generation could get online to get online.
And so, not surprisingly, that's there's lots of lawsuits against the Texas PUC, against Griddy, against ERCOT. It sounds like some of those are wrongful death lawsuits because people lost their lives. Crazy.
Yeah, there's lots of stories about this. The articles that talk about Griddy customers getting just like $10,000 bills. They're really good reads to understand what Griddy did. And in average times, it makes a lot of sense. You can on average, wholesale prices would probably be lower than retail prices you could get from investor-owned utilities. But man, this is not a good time to be a Griddy customer.
No. I like how they told people that they should think about switching providers like 2 days before the storm came. And then the people tried to do it and they were like, it's not possible to switch my provider right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But on this Wall Street Journal article, I don't know, you do have to come up with a counterfactual of what their bills would have been had they been under a traditional utility. So I don't know that the conclusion is necessarily that traditional utilities provide lower cost energy. It's just in the regions where there are these customer choice utilities and that people have selected them, they have been higher. So there is a difference in counterfactual there that I think we should be sensitive to. Because you can't really know what resources are included in the utilities historic portfolio that just isn't available to these other customers.
Yeah, it's not a very good metric. The 28 billion total is like not per capita, not per month. Like for all I know, 28 billion is that $10 monthly fee multiplied by the number of customers multiplied by the number of months in the study, right?
Yeah, I mean, it isn't because you read the article, so that's not what they did. But it does make a good headline. I mean, it is a really good headline. And I'm not logged into our subscription, so I can't go to the full article. But if you want good coverage on this, you can probably have some guest subscription. But they do, I mean, they use EIA data. It's the same data we report, the same data a lot of people report, everybody, all utilities report to the EIA. And that's how they came up with the 28 billion. It did not include, and I think it was highlighted in the lead, I want to highlight it again. It did not include this event. So this is just from, what was it, 2004 to 2019? Is that right, Ian?
It sounds right.
Sounds right. Is that what was in the lead?
I don't think it was in the lead.
Oh, okay.
Since 2004 is what
it's what's in here. It was through 2019. I remember it. Okay. Where am I going next?
All right. Moving on. BPA hosted its first QBR technical workshop for fiscal year 2021 on February 23rd. Power operating revenues were revisited. Trading floor sales from higher than expected prices were cited as a primary driver for Q1 forecast being 130 million above rate case. Transmission revenues were down by about 14.5 million due to non-renewals of PTP and fiber contracts. The hot topic for the day was the review of the mismatch between rate case and actuals in treatment of components of power business unit non-federal interest expense. As BPA reviewed the variance, the accountants in the audience got a little excited. The change will be to record interest expense on the income statement, regardless of how it is paid, rather than netting bond proceeds issued to pay for non-federal bond premiums against related interest expense. To the point, interest expense was 70 million higher than rate case due to this adjustment, offset by lower federal interest expense. No impact to transmission, and BPA will use the previously vacant non-cash expense line in the Slice True-Up's minimum required net revenues calculation to ensure Slice customers don't pay a share of higher interest and treasury payment. Agency reserves are at 91 days cash on hand and include impacts of both the interest expense adjustment and the $80 million debt reduction payment from the transmission RDC triggered, with other non-cash adjustments due to depreciation, amortization, accretion method changes. The next QBR will be in May 2021. Whew.
That was a great lead, Arin. I loved it. That was perfect. Erin's still contributing.
I said about Arin.
Still contributing, even when she's on vacation. She wrote this before she went on vacation. So perfect, Arin.
I was definitely well aware that this would be a lead that Arin would read if she were here.
I'm thinking maybe I'm going to have like Arin write these leads and then have Brian read them just from now on.
I was so anxious coming into this. I feel like a huge weight just lifted off my shoulders now. Like
You made it through it. Good job.
Yeah, it may not have been the best, but it's done. We'll say that.
I feel like Brian should get like continuing education CPA credits just for reading that.
I could like see the excitement in Erin's eyes as I was reading it.
In Erin's eyes or Karen's eyes?
Erin's eyes, like in my head. Because
I mean, I was also very excited that he was reading it and doing such a great job.
I don't know about that.
So I like Brian's on vacation next week. Karen, you've already agreed to come back. I think maybe you'll be reading these type of leads next week. I'm very excited. We're going to have to see what Arin can do for you.
Oh, good. I look forward to that.
I hope you felt that weight just sit on your shoulders.
just like down here a little bit.
You're just sunk.
Okay, who's next?
I'm up next. Yeah. Okay. The extreme winter storm last week downed thousands of power lines and poles across the region and hit PGE particularly hard. PGE reported that it has restored about 700,000 power outages for more than 421,000 customers as of Wednesday. That weird stat is the outcome of customers experiencing multiple outages during the last 11 days. Northwest utilities banded together to restore power and help each other out. Mutual aid agreements were called upon to call on crews to provide repairs. To get restoration updates, you can follow PGE on Twitter @Portland General or reference their storm info page, which provides a crew count and outage updates.
So Clatskanie IPUD did send some crews. Actually, probably that's incorrectly worded. We sent a few line workers. I don't know that we sent a full crew.
Full crew.
Is that right, Brian? You're nodding your head.
I think we sent one crew and kept one here for anything that may have happened here. It was my understanding. Yeah.
I'm looking at the stats now. They still have 2,000 customers out of service. out of power. Karen, are you in PGU service territory, and were you
I am
without
not.
power?
I'm in PAC territory. I'm the
Oh.
little slice of I'm the little slice of Portland that is Pacific. Yeah.
Did you experience any outages?
I did. We lost power for 9 hours, which when you have a 1-year-old is an adventure. So
Yeah.
but we survived. We were just about to head to a different location that had power, and our power kicked back on. So it was perfect timing.
That's awesome. Did you get out candles? Did your 1-year-old get to light candles and run around with flashlights?
No, we actually still have the lantern right here. So we have not put it away yet. And we were reading by lantern light until it got light. I won't go into anything about daylight savings time yet, Paul. We can save that for another week. But luckily she slept in that day. So it was only about an hour before the sun came up. So
nice.
Yeah. How are you guys up there?
We were so lucky. Just knock on wood. Yeah, no, we were so lucky. We didn't have we didn't get the ice. So our power.
We didn't lose power until it was the ice storm. Like the snow was pretty to look at, and otherwise we were fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
I've heard that people are also similar to Texas. They're calling into like an investigation into how the outage could be so bad, and et cetera, and that it should never happen again. And I feel like it's the consequence of living in a world with weather.
Yeah,
hardening only makes it go so far.
We could underground everything like Paul suggested last week. People's bills might triple. I don't know. That's
it's one of those like weird hypothetical questions or counterfactual. Like, what in these times, how much more would you pay in order to have service is like really interesting. And if you asked during the outage, you probably got a different answer than if you were to ask the same question during normal times. And interestingly, rate hearings generally don't happen during power outages.
And then you also have to, once you ask yourself how much more you're willing to pay, you have to compare that to the price of buying your own personal generator.
Right.
Cheaper.
Right.
Not during power outages, of course.
Awesome. What's up next?
Last Friday, the Northwest Power and Conservation Council held a system integration forum, SIF, on diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, in power planning, and specifically the Council's 2021 power plan. It's a difficult and sensitive topic, but one of the things I heard that resonated strongly, possibly because of the Texas power outages, was that it's vitally important to accurately quantify reliability and resiliency in power planning, because when the power goes out, some groups of people are impacted more than others. For more information, see the slides and videos available from the webinar at northwestcouncil.org.
Public Power Underground has discussed the Northwest Power Pool's Resource Adequacy Program with EWEB's Susan Ackerman and BPA's Rachel Dibble. This week, we get the load following customer's perspective on the program from PNGC's Vice President of Power Supply, Greg Mendonca.
Hey, Greg, welcome to Public Power Underground.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Am I supposed to keep my hand up? I do support like pressuring Bonneville. So should I keep my hands up the whole time or?
Yeah, I'm going to be testing, and I expect your editing skills to be really good because I'm going to have like the big three. I expect to be like here, 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 and then the put the hand up thing here. And every time I touch it, I want to see a line go through.
Okay.
Just make sure I'm sticking to my talking points. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. You want bullets in that, or do you just want like bold, outlined? What's your preference here?
Yeah, any sort of animated PowerPoint type of thing, I'm into that. The fade in, the fade out, I love it.
Okay. We'll try to get you some animations. It'll be wonderful. You know what's ultimately going to happen is I'm going to have a notepad. I'm just going to bring up a notepad. Yeah, it's going to be super low tech. How are you coping with the remote work and all the professional isolation? You're in a closet, maybe, looks like?
Yeah, I'm in our upstairs office. I actually had to move up into my wife's space to have the quiet zone. I'm in the crazy zone where we're just open living room area. And any meeting I'm in, I always warn people that I'm going to have interruptions from my work, stay-at-home kids from school. So it's been crazy. but luckily we're pretty resilient. We've been making it through, and I'm very hopeful that in the near future, maybe this year, I'll be able to actually go venture outside, and that'll be fun.
Yeah, that'll be wonderful. It has taken a lot of resiliency to kind of cope through all this. So good for you being resilient and managing having kids at home. Not easy. I just wanted to have a conversation with you. I feel like we can have maybe a little bit informal discussion. We had Rachel Dibble on to talk about the Northwest Power Pools Resource Adequacy Program, along with Susan Ackerman, got some of their perspective. I'd love to have the load following customers take. I suppose you can speak for all of them, but if if you're only willing to speak for PNGC, I will accept that as a position.
Yeah, no, well, I'll definitely speak for PNGC, but we are a load following customer, and I think you've heard us ask some tougher questions of BPA in some forums, and so we are unique because the aspects of the resource adequacy program that we love, more reliable system, possibly reduction of planning reserve margin, so more efficient capital in the region, maybe potentially fewer price spikes, things like that provide a more reliable system. We're very much in favor of. We think it's a good part of maybe a bigger solution. Maybe that's an RTO ISO.
Got it. Thank you for that visual cue. I got it.
Exactly. But I think the aspects of the program we really like are well laid out. But some of the ways that it interacts with the Bonneville customers are unique. So you're a slice customer,
right?
You have one view of it, and I think that having a voluntary status to participate as a slice customer kind of makes sense, and I could see how that would be important to assess that. As a load following customer, we're a load serving entity, so technically we thought we were going to have some optionality and some choice in it, but Bonneville did come out and say, well, we think it's important to have this at the load serving entity level for the point of regulation. But for our load following customers, Bonneville is the load serving entity, which was confusing.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was expecting it to be a little bit more back and forth. It seemed like they were hedging when they first talked about that, but have they gotten more entrenched in that positioning, do you think?
I think we've had a follow-up discussion with them and really shared our thoughts. They've shared their thoughts. And I think, don't get me wrong, if Bonneville can provide a service and we know exactly what that service will look like and it's cost effective compared to any alternatives that we may be able to go out and get, I think we'd sign up for it. But the issue is that the one thing that we're a little bit concerned about is it seems like it's going to become a monopoly service, meaning we don't necessarily have choice. And then if you're under a monopoly service, what you really want to make sure is you have some ability to either control that price signal to you, whether that's costs or what benefits flow through, or if things get out of whack, you have some ability to get out and say, all right, here's your offering, but you have to provide me some ability for an alternative choice. I don't think BPA is going to be necessarily beat by anybody. I don't have any ideas there, but in my view, preserving optionality is important. Preserving flexibility is important.
So as I've heard Bonneville articulate this, it's their view that they have this obligation already, and maybe they can provide this service more efficiently by participating in it. So are you thinking that what you want for the optionality is Bonneville could they provide you at cost service, and you want the optionality, if there is an access to market, that I would have some optionality to go to the market for a similar capacity service? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, I think as long as there is some recognition that you're not locked into whatever Bonneville provides, and there's an ability to find something that could be an alternative to meet that. Because again, I don't have a sense in the coming years Bonneville is going to provide load following customers a $10 million invoice and say, you owe us now, we met your load. I don't think that's going to happen. That would be a bad outcome, and I think they'd get a lot of fight on that. But I do see this program altering how we view something like post 2028, and how Bonneville interacts with this program, and how they allocate and how they decide how it works today will influence how we think it's going to work in the next contract. And I think in that vein, we want to make sure that basically Bonneville is getting to a point where they can be the provider of choice, and they can be everybody's first choice for post 2028 contracts. And taking monopoly services and taking away choice, I don't think that's really where customers want to go in the future. I think to the extent they could recognize that flexibility and choice might be something they have to integrate into future contracts now is a good lesson, and something they should probably work out.
And that kind of choice is around the service components you would elect to take, or around the provider of that service? Where are you thinking about post 2028? Is it both?
Yeah, that's a good question. So our contracts now as load following are really just energy based. There's no capacity component. We're not allocated any capacity, and we're also not expected to bring any capacity. I've had lots of discussions with developers where they're a little bit confused when I say through 2028, there is essentially no value to capacity to us, because we're incentivized to bring a flat block of energy, and Bonneville does the rest. So looking ahead, I wonder what a BPA contract looks like in an RA world where they might not be long all the time, and they might be short. And what is the cost of the capacity that BPA prices to their customers versus what can you get it on the market? That's the kind of evaluation I think customers will be inclined to make, because I don't think the price of energy is going to be the driving factor in post 2028. I think capacity is going to emerge as the big issue.
Yeah, I agree with you I think the future of our markets is around the capacity needed to serve, and less around the energy. I think we all kind of see the writing on the wall. Energy is going to be cheap, if not free, or negatively priced in a really renewable build out world. So understanding in this post 2028 conversation, the way Bonneville capacity gets valued in the next product, and having some understanding of how you can market your capacity if you are subscribed and have some excess, I think is really interesting. I'd love to talk to you more about it. I think we're running out of time though. Are there any more of those bullets you want to hit before I let you go?
Yeah, I think part of the deal of energy prices going down is I think a lot of people are committing to carbon-free future, and we are one of those folks. So part of our big three, committing to a carbon neutral power supply in 2033 and moving forward, which is honestly fun to plan for and work on. But yeah, I think that's my last one.
So what it was RTO. Give me the rundown. The RTO, Bonneville,
fixing BPA,
and carbon-free.
that carbon neutral future. Yeah.
Okay, we'll see what kind of graphics I can get you. And if I get good graphics, you're gonna come back, right?
If you get good graphics, I'll smash that like button on YouTube.
No way, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Are you subscribed? Are you subscribed?
No, so I don't subscribe because I just get the email from you all the time. So it's really
you're a friend of the underground. You're right here.
Yeah.
You're a friend of the underground.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, thanks for being a friend of the underground. I love talking to you guys at PNGC. I really value you guys, your thoughts and your leadership in the region. So we're Slice, your load following. We can be friends. I think that's the lesson I want to take away from this.
I couldn't agree more.
Thanks again.
All right. Thanks, Paul.
Northwest River Partners Kurt Miller has agreed to do a guest lead where he writes the lead, reads the lead, and records the lead. It's a new innovation for public power underground. Take it away, Kurt.
Thank you, Paul. NOAA Fisheries released a peer-reviewed study that highlights the impact of climate change and ocean warming on Pacific salmon. NOAA's analysis showed that if the relationship between salmon survival and ocean temperatures remains constant, then Snake River Basin Chinook may be headed towards extinction within 40 years. Key takeaways include, first, warming oceans appear to present a much greater threat to salmon survival than warming rivers, under a likely climate change scenario. Second, one of the authors of the study, Dr. Brian Burke, said, quote, even if survival in the river was 100%, Snake River salmon are not going to recover if we don't do something about the ocean, end quote. And third, to address this threat, much more research needs to be performed to understand what is happening to salmon, their predators, and their prey in the ocean environment. This study is the latest in a line of new research since 2019 that points to climate change and warming oceans as a driving factor in salmon decline since the 1970s. Implications of these findings is that taking a river-centric approach to salmon restoration has not been an effective strategy, nor is it likely to be in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Kurt. Can you answer one clarifying question for me? It sounds like
Yes.
one of the analysis was that it's the ocean conditions at the stage at which they are most vulnerable. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, I think to try to briefly answer that, they looked, NOAA looked at what climate change would mean to both the rivers and to the oceans. And by well over, I think, a 5-to-1 margin, the NOAA said that it's the oceans where the damage is really going to be done and what would really potentially drive the extinction possibility. So it's definitely an ocean issue that we need to be ready to address.
So it's more like, because you've said before, and I really agree with you, it's this discussion does take nuance, but we do have to be able to summarize it at what I would say maybe kindergarten levels so that people can understand it. So it is, and taking into effect all of the different characteristics, where climate change will have the most impact will be in the ocean. I want to summarize it right.
Salmon,
okay.
Yeah.
It's not just that that's
salmon,
the most, where they're most
Right.
vulnerable. It's if you take into effect all of the different ways that they're changing their vulnerabilities in the ocean is where climate change will have the greatest effect for salmon.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a real question about what's going on in the ocean. A lot more work needs to be done there, but definitely NOAA is saying that where climate change is going to do the most harm is definitely in the ocean, to the point that focusing on the rivers is not going to save salmon.
Perfect. Thank you, Kurt. Thanks for taking the lead for us, and we're going to have you back. Hope you're willing to come back.
Okay, I'm ready to take the belt. Thanks so much.
Wave.
Okay, that's all the news we're covering this week. Send us any news, jobs, questions, opinions, or corrections to Paul on Twitter at a power manager. A lot more content on there, but recently, by the way, good stuff. Or if you're a friend of the underground, send any of us a note. Any corrections from Paul last week?
Glad you asked, Brian. I have discovered that pre-funking is what I would refer to as pre-gaming. So I've learned something. I hope y'all have learned something too. I don't know that pre-funking is that widely used. I also don't know how widely used pre-gaming is.
I've heard both. And
I'm just surprised you didn't know that they meant the same thing.
Yeah.
I learned this.
First time I
Learning new things every day.
Yeah, no. And like during it, I thought I heard pre-funk. When I was editing, I was like, did he say pre-fun? Because pre-fun maybe makes more sense for what he's talking about. And then I Googled and it's pre-funk. So
it's because funk is short for function. And so like the event you're going to is the function. This is the pre-function.
I totally agree. I think pre-funking is more about events and parties and folks use that for that sort of thing. And pre-gaming is probably sporting events.
Directly to the game that is there in the title.
Yep.
But I mean, he was talking about it in the context of a party before the tailgate party. The tailgate party is like the pre-game, and this is like the pre.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, if you double up, I don't know where that puts you.
Well, as a trained linguist, I'm making a note to deeply research the etymology of all of these phrases.
All of them. Report back next week. I'm glad I'm going to be here next week so we can learn about this.
I was also wondering if pre-funk would be, maybe it was more tied to like a music event or function. So you opened my eyes a little bit on that.
Yeah, no, it's spelled with a K when I Google it. Maybe that's because I searched with a K though. I don't know. It's just blowing my mind. Is it with a C or with a K? I have no idea now.
I feel like it could be either.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you can stick with pregame just so that you know what we're talking about. And
Okay.
and the rest of us we know what it is because we were already on board. So
Okay.
Luckily, there exists a Stack Overflow website for language, Paul. So we're going to get this solved.
I didn't know there was a linguist Stack Overflow. I love Stack Overflow. Ian and I dedicated Stack Overflow. How many coins or chips or whatever they do on Stack Overflow do you now have, Ian? You have some coins.
I'm one. Yeah, I think I've got 13 for asking stupid questions, but I'm like one away from being able to up and down vote, and I've just run out of stupid questions, so I can never get that coveted 14th coin.
I always just creeped on there. I think you call it creeping when you just kind of search on the website without actually logging in. I don't have a username on Stack Overflow. Lurking, there we go. Ian, you're a certified Stack Overflow user. Maybe that can go in your title next week. Remember
there
that,
we
Brian?
go.
I'm gonna have to remember that. Shoot, I gotta do this next week.
Are you even taking notes, Paul?
Ian, taking notes.
Brian's smile is indicating to me that it's going to make it in there at some point.
Next week on Public Power Underground, we're talking about creeping versus lurking and defunking. Well, I'm glad we got that figured out. So we will be back next week to talk about more than just that. We'll be talking, public power and public power adjacent news, including a discussion about rates with Snohomish's Brian Booth. I will be on vacation, but luckily Karen has already agreed to fill in for me. So it should
Coming back.
be a better episode. No take backsies, Karen.
No, I wouldn't even if I could.
So to make sure you don't miss an episode, you can sign up for our unintrusive newsletter with links to all the ways to consume this fascinating content at Substack, publicpowerunderground.substack.com. If the Friends of the Underground email from Paul was foisted on you without your knowledge, same. But you made it this far, so you must not hate it. If you made it this far but do hate it and want to be removed as a friend of the Underground, send Paul an email with the subject line, "Put litter in its place" emoji. You have to be able to find that emoji. Or you can just type that out. That's an email, "Put litter in its place" emoji, as the subject line to Paul Dockery to be removed from the distribution list for the Friends of the Underground. Thanks for tuning in.
I did not pre-write the Plug Pass promo this week, so we're doing this live, okay? The presenting sponsor of Public Power Underground is Plug Pass. Plug Pass is a electric vehicle charging program made for and by commuters. There are three main components that I am passionate about when it comes to electric vehicle charging, and you can hear more about that on the 4th roundtable coming up later this afternoon, which is the reason why we had to record this earlier than normal. The three things are electric vehicle charging infrastructure owned by electric utilities. I think that is a critical component, and all of us need to think more about ways that we can provide this service cost effectively to our customers. The second is charging speed fees. If you haven't heard my rant on charging speed fees, you need to tune into more Public Power Underground content. The third is outlets. A lot of electric vehicle charging can happen with just an outlet. A level 2 charger is nothing but a payment kiosk with an extension cord. I have now successfully practiced for the I've now successfully practiced for the 4th roundtable. That's the word. Later this afternoon. Plug Pass, it's open source. Plug Pass, it's just an outlet. Public Power Underground is a pandemic diversion for entertainment purposes. It's written, edited, and produced by the Power Department. The views expressed here are our own and not the official views of Clatskanie PUD, nor of any person or organization affiliated or doing business with Clatskanie PUD, nor the organization of the guests also appearing in Public Power Underground. Matt Schroettnig and Bo Downen asked that I read a special disclaimer in addition to the standard one. It reads, and I paraphrase for brevity, the opinions of this show's guests are their own, especially the opinion regarding the relationship or lack thereof between the Guns N' Roses catalog and the XRPS. Neither Clatskanie PUD nor those appearing on Public Power Underground generate ad revenue from the episode. Make Matt, Bo, Karen, and Kurt feel better about their participation in this week's episode by sending them a note, text, or email with a thumbs up and telling them how much you enjoyed it. Do it for them, do it for us, and do it to make other people feel valued and appreciated. Public Power Underground for electric utility enthusiasts. Public Power Underground, it's worth to watch.